Mischa and Siobhan, thank you so much for sharing that amazing body of work with us. It was really fabulous, and a fabulous journey through a lot of creativity. But the first thing I wanted to address was, for both of you, apart from the last couple of your works, Mischa, is that both of you work very much with combining image and music, and very little or no sync dialogue. I'm just going to get my notes here, hold on. And particularly the music more than sound design really drives a great deal of your body of work, particularly all of your body of work, Siobhan. So I wanted to start with you, Siobhan, to ask, what I'm interested in is which comes first, the music or the image? And if it's not that simple, can you talk us through your process of the working with the music and the image?
Yeah, totally. The image comes first, and I almost never have anything to do with the music, actually. So for me, it was a process. There's various reasons for them being non-sync, but the music...
What are some of those reasons, apart from budget?
Actually, it's not a budgetary thing, although it is cheaper. That is true.
It's much cheaper.
No, it is... I was a painter a long time ago, and there was something when I went to film school, every step of coming up with the idea, writing the idea, directing the idea, then editing the idea, it somehow diminished what it was I was thinking about. And so when I left film school, I went back to that more fundamental kind of way of thinking, and trying to think about the space as a space that I could sculpt, as opposed to a space that I asked people to or performers to recreate for me. It was much more about the physicality of the space. So for me, it was one of the things to get rid of first was the dialogue, and to go back to a much more physical kind of dance almost for me. So that was the first reason. But the music bit was, it's just not part of my headspace. It's not what I ever think about, but I know other people do. And for me, filmmaking is about having a conversation in all sorts of different ways. And for me, I would, the visual bit, I feel, able in, and then I give them over, and then the conversation comes back to me musically from somebody else. So I give them the image, and then I hear it for the first time pretty much with the sound already, the music done. And there's, in some, in fact, I think probably 85% of them, there's no conversation after that point. It's just, here's this, what's your response? So it's a kind of call and response.
Well, so when you're working with a composer...
Well, I was going to say I don't work with them. Yeah. I do, but
I mean, because the normal process. Just so people know, my background is really straight down the line: TV, drama, directing, and doco directing. So it's you always have a conversation with the composer, often in pre-production and during production, and particularly during the edit. And there's pretty strong directorial kind of guidelines around it. So you hand the edited picture over,
mm-hmm.
and say, do with it what you will.
Indeed. I do.
Wow.
I do exactly that. And then it's like I get a new story back that I don't know or recognise, and that bit I like a great deal. And the very short ones, for instance, little black and white ones at the start, I hadn't even seen the picture because they were made in camera on Super 8, so I send the cartridge off blind. I mean, I vaguely know what we've pointed it at. And then a composer gets the picture before I do, and then I see it for the first time married together.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a really, really interesting, fabulous process. And I think, most of you would agree the results are, really, really powerful, incredibly powerful. So, because I was struck by, I can't remember which one, I've made notes of all the films, but one of them you credit the composer and yourself right at the top.
Well, that's right, and I've never met either of those composers. They're from Western Australia, so I send the cartridge off and it comes back with that on it, and so we've never met. I've actually never even spoken to them, and so that's kind of part of the process. And one of the things I like about it, I think, is that every iteration of the film is a surprise to me. So they're not written beforehand, there's sort of a notion, and then so the making of it is a surprise. And then the editing, in those cases, they're edited in camera, so that's kind of a blind process, which I really love. And then it gets sent away and it comes back. So it's always, it's never diminished, it's always increasing, if you know what I mean, which is the part of the process that I really like.
Mischa, I noticed with your, I think the first two, once again, there was no sync sound, and you also used music as a really dominant feature, but a very different type of music. So, what was your process with those first two films?
Well, most of my music was made by my housemates at the time that I was making the film. And so I usually knew the songs because I'd hear them making it in their bedroom or something. Like, I want that song. And then I'd usually play the music on set to the actors or send it around. So it was a very kind of... And often I think of it as the character in the film. You know, they would listen to that music or it would be their song kind of thing. Yeah.
So with your... the first film, Walking Shadows,
yeah.
So there were kind of two parts to that. So the first part was that extraordinary old couple, young couple, or couple, old couple, and old stallion, young stallion leg wrestle.
Yeah.
So, and you know, the Walking Shadows was the song, and the lyrics were there, so quite different from the instrumental approach to music that Siobhan has. So that, and it's rock and roll, you know, rock and roll. So how did that work with the? Cause that had a dramatic arc. You know, had characters, it had dramatic arc. So, what came first, the music, the song, or the drama? Or it just talk us through the process of putting that film, the dramatic part of it, and then we've got the sort of dramatised doco afterwards as the second part.
Yeah, I can't actually remember what came first, but I can say that pretty much every song in there is by the same band, which is those two guys, which are in one of those films.
Right.
And I was living with them. And it's a tour of my lounge rooms.
Right.
I didn't go very far when I was looking for locations.
Very cheap.
Yeah,
Or
very
very
cheap.
far looking for music.
Or music, yeah. And in fact, the musicians are amazing, but if they were here now, they would still say that they're draft songs and they're not ready yet.
Right.
And so they've never been released other than in the films.
Okay.
Because I was always like, your music's amazing, we have to put it out there, I'm going to make something, so it gets out there.
But so with the old couple, young couple,
yeah.
Can you just talk us through, you had the music first?
I would have had the music because I was constantly had them. I'd be like, that's a great song, send it to me on MP3 or something.
And then did you have the kind of action, the actual idea for the story separate from the music, and then because you just said you play the music back on set sometimes, so did you do that in that case?
In that case, I don't think so. I think maybe that was one case where it was a little bit more of a kind of, we've got this story and sequences, and we've got this song that matches it. Yeah.
And then you did the kind of dramatise, well, the improvised doco drama. I love the kind of, it was. There's no particular definition of where the band's they're rehearsing in your lounge room, I presume, and these two women come in. So how did that come about?
I think that was like actually a crowdfunding campaign. Because I was like, you guys have to put your music out there. Come on, we're going to make a crowdfunding thing. And I was like, how about we do it like this? And then and then it just became a film in itself. And actually, because they never... I love these guys. They make amazing music. And I was always like, let's release an album. Let's do crowdfunding. The crowdfunding thing never happened because they didn't write the little bits of content that you need to go with the film.
was just going to add about the idea of the music always being in draft form for them. I always think of films very different in what they are, but they're kind of drafts. I never really think about them as being complete, and I think that's part of that conversational thing with the picture and the musician. There could be another version next week, and another person could have a conversation back to the picture, and I might change the picture in conversation with the words. So there's a kind of, film can seem very stable, but I actually think it's much more interesting if it has the possibility of being a little bit unstable and perhaps unfinished, and sometimes a bit kind of bad as well. So there's a kind of incompleteness to it. It doesn't have to always have that complete polish. So anyway, the draft thing I like.
I'm not going to go back and read it anyway.
No, neither am I.
No, but the thing that really struck me, I don't know, I'm going to throw it open to the audience in a minute, is that with your work in particular, Siobhan, it really reminded me a lot of sort of Eisenstein's montage, and also the fact that in documentary, for example, very often the sound design and the music gives meaning to the images. And so there were 2 or 3 or probably more of your works where I thought, wow, you could totally change the impact that has on the audience with a different piece of music. So they're really interesting exercises in that point. I mean, from a teaching point of view, it would be fabulous to
yeah, feel free, anyone. If you want to do a piece of music, I'm happy to lay it down on any of those pictures.
But I don't know, did anyone else observe that the music totally, in a few of those pieces, was very strongly provoked the audience to respond to the images in a particular way?
I really love children's books as well, in that way that the image and the picture come together and make something quite different separately there. Yeah, so
but it's also very provocative from a filmmaking point of view, because in a traditional practice, the director has this control and this vision and is guiding everyone towards that vision. But your practice is that you sort of collect these images, often in a very sort of montage way, put them together without being guided by the music, and then hand over, in one sense, the final meaning, the meaning creation, to the composer, which is extraordinarily undirectorial in the usual, sense of the director controls everything and is a creative head. It's a really interesting process.
Yeah, I really actually genuinely like not knowing. I find that it's the energy that makes me do the next project, is the bit that it's the discovery of the making, as opposed to I hate the feeling of colouring something in. I like the feeling of it always being something that I'm looking for a solution to, or I'm just uncertain of what the end result will be, and it's sort of a bit of a come what may, which I like, and so you never know quite what's going to land. So it's always a surprise. So I think it was a reaction to that never wanting that diminishing feeling of, I had this great idea, and every step I took somehow diminished that idea. So it always kept it in this kind of, I don't know. And in some ways I think it's also, I'm not quite responsible. I like giving the responsibility over. So starting the thing and then allowing somebody else to kind of, if they're willing to come on board to get that thing to keep moving and perhaps never quite finish. So there's an openness.
Have you ever had music come back where you just went, nah?
Or sometimes I hear it and I go, oh, geez. I do, absolutely. But I'm all right with that. That's the response, that's the conversation, and I'm not in control of it. And it makes sense. I mean, I couldn't do it. So it's actually asking somebody else to have a conversation with me, and if they're prepared to have it, it's just, I feel like really privileged. You go, oh, okay, well, you were prepared to do that in response. And the 1, 2, 3 one of the couple in the landscape, the composer was really reticent. Oh, what is this? I was like, and I said, I'll just leave it with you, just playing sort of in the corner. And it just kind of crept up on him, and he rang me and he said, I've done it. I just did it sort of to it while it was playing, and there was just something really nice about that. It was this kind of sense, and I had no idea what it would be, and he played it to me for the first time in the picture, and it completely changed the film, and that was, yeah.
I mean, that's what I'm talking about, the power of the music too. It totally affects the way, I know for me, that I'm relating to the images, and I found it really powerful. Now, both of you, the last couple of films that you showed did have a more structured directorial approach in that you had cast people who had characters and things happened to them.
Lo and behold.
Lo and
Oh
behold.
my God.
As the father of documentary, whose name's just totally gone out of my head, of course, said it, with Doco, but it applies to drama. Something has to happen to someone. That's the sort of essence of storytelling. He said. So with both of the final couple of pieces, it did you changed style. So your final film, and I can't remember the title. It was the Donkey
in a Lion's Cage.
Yes, that had definite characters. There was a lot of art direction in it. Things did happen to people. People reacted to what was happening. I've talked to you about this film before. I don't quite know what it's about, but I loved
Welcome to my world.
yeah, welcome to you.
Helen.
And I was totally immersed in it. I loved it. And of course, the final two, but particularly the last film of yours, had we suddenly jumped into sync dialogue, which was like, oh, and there's a narrative process going on there, which is different from the earlier pieces. So, can you both talk about your move into that sort of more I don't know, deliberate, but you certainly had to plan more because you had to cast and production design and...
Yeah, I guess there is more planning. Actually, I don't know why this
Was
just
there
popped
more
into
planning?
my head. Well, yes and no, but I was just thinking, actually, both of us, I kill women and you're pretty awful about them. It just struck me that that's what grew in all of those films. I just had this funny feeling. And that seemed to get more and more explicit as the films went on. It's not an answer to your question, but that's probably why we collaborate, yeah. How did that happen? Did it happen? I think they've got looser since then, Helen. Oh. So I think perhaps it was a craving for some control, which I then thought, yeah, maybe not. Oh, okay. And I think probably the Donkey film is the one I'm I feel least in control of. I'm like, I almost don't recognise it. Oh. It's a kind of an odd film. For me, so I'm not sure that I've got a sensible or deep or profound answer for you, Helen, I'm afraid.
It's very disappointing, Siobhan.
Yeah, sorry about
that. The audience are very disappointed, but Mischa, what about the last film there?
Well, that wasn't actually that was an older film to some of the others.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
They're not in chronological
order.
they're
not in chronological
order. Well, that's just totally thrown my analysis of your work.
Yeah.
Totally thrown it.
But
so I was building a narrative arc around that's what I do. I know you're refusing. That's what I do.
Your narrative,
it was probably just time and resources. Like that last film, I had more time and resources to bring in a bigger cast and create a bigger story. Whereas the other ones, like I said, were often in my lounge room with my housemates acting or my friends acting. And
and with that last one too, just in terms of developing the story, how much was that sort of improv, at the time?
There's little bits of improv in there, but the big stretches of dialogue are written, but they're partly written so that they can have a lot to say while they're moving around the space, and maybe that movement was a bit improvised. Yeah, so they could kind of like learn these big chunks of dialogue, and then kind of like reel them off without thinking too much. Yeah.
And before I throw it over to the audience, the last question I've got is your choice for how you actually shot that last piece. So it's from pretty much the same angle. You don't do the classic coverage thing. And also, you don't do the classic nicely framed shot. You could say, but you got a bucket load of headroom and people doing strange things in that frame. So, can you just talk to us a bit more about that approach?
I have to think back. Yes, I think I really wanted to show how much the characters were changing and shifting and moving, and so kind of have the constant of the space and the angle kind of to help offset that sense of the characters always kind of in this movement. Yeah.
Do you want a cup of tea or something?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. Okay.
school you go to, Jess? Hampton Family.
Do you like it?
No.
Why not?
Boring.
Hello, Laura.
Good afternoon.
It does me a lot of good to see you smiling. I got the idea you didn't know how.
Yuga's friendship reminded me of the fact that I'm still young.
Hey, Dad!
Yes.
Let's show Lani the dog training. Come on. I need some more practice. Okay. Well, come on. What are you doing?
I'm working, darling.
No, you're not. Come on, you're being my dog.
I am working.
No, you're not. Come on, I'm bored and I want to
Jess, I'm not going to do that now. I'm busy.
play. No, you're not. Come on. That's just an excuse. Come on, let's go.
Okay, I think we can throw over to the audience now. Has anyone got questions? It's a bit hard to see because this light is burning our eyeballs off. Any? Can't see any hands up. Is there any hands up?
At the back.
What's something you're working on now? What's something you'd like to work on?
Oh, at the moment, we're working together on a film about a bunch of teenagers out in the middle of a camp, all terrorising each other with gossip and meanness
Identity politics.
and identity politics. Yeah, and we've been watching the rushes, and there's some horrifying stuff. Yeah. We're a bit scared.
Yeah.
Is it a bit Lord of the Flies-ish, kind of?
Yeah, contemporary Lord of the Flies. Yeah.
Yeah, and after most of the shorts, we made a film together, for those who don't know. So we made a feature together, and then we shot another one about 2.5 years ago, which we're still editing. Well, we just didn't edit, and then in about 6 months ago we started editing. So we're working on that.
What brought you two together to actually create together?
Well,
Just hanging out a lot and chatting.
yeah.
And talking, and then one day I was like, I think Siobhan.
We did a 48-hour film competition together.
Yeah.
I thought, I wonder if I could work with Mischa, and I could handle it for 48 hours. So I thought that'll be the test. If after the 48 hours I still think this is a good idea, and indeed it was an awesome idea, and I really enjoyed it. And then we thought, bugger it, we'll make a feature because it's time, and we were sick of waiting. So we did, which was terrific. And then we did that, finished that, and then shot another one. Failed to complete it. If there are any of my students here, don't ignore my behaviour. Complete the film quickly and move on. But so we did, and lockdown happened and various other things, and we kind of, but we're on it now. But Mischa and I also, was a student of mine a long time ago, and then came back and did honours, and actually that last film of Mischa's was his honours film from school. And so we'd sort of worked together professionally
that's
like
right,
that.
Student teacher idea.
Yeah, that's right. That's so not true. I did respect training today, and now I feel really awkward, and I don't really know where to put that question. And then Mischa and I just did start working together, and we had something where, and I can't explain it, and I sort of in some ways don't want to have to explain it. I don't mean to you. I'm happy to tell you anything, but I don't know that I want to explain it to myself, because there's something that somehow I don't have a boundary about what I'll share in terms of story stuff with Mischa, and vice versa, and so he sort of becomes a first audience for story ideas, and so there's kind of like you can test things out. And there's just not that many people in life where you find that thing where they'll have the conversation back to you that they're not bullshitting with you, one, and also you don't feel in any way restrained or that you have to be polite or any of those things. So it's always heaps of fun. And we do a lot of writing, a bit disturbing sometimes and a bit kind of worrying. And we do a lot of writing sort of, on the run, texting one another and, sending each other things. And then we build sort of, without quite knowing it, a thing, an idea or a kind of notion, and then we start pointing cameras at it. So it's just something about how our friendship has evolved, and that collaboration has been, kind of slightly mysterious.
And I think that's a sort of reflection as well of the the different approach to the directorial approach, you know, jumping outside the sort of militaristic model of traditional film production, because it's much more difficult to co-direct when that's the way you work. So it's interesting that you could co-create. So it's very fluid.
I don't think we never quite know at the end whose ideas were which and how do you extract them and put them back together, which has been really lovely. Yeah.
Now, we've got time for one more question, I think. Have we got anyone else? And just call out because I can't see hands. I just lied. There's someone right there.
So has working with each other changed your, respectively, the way you work, you know, like when you work together? Is that you think you've had an influence on each other on how you work or how you'd like to work in the future if you went back working on your own?
Yeah, Mischa makes me a much worse filmmaker. I'm just put that out there.
I was going to say something about it, but
yeah, no.
that's privately. Yes.
No, I actually mean exactly the opposite. I'm being... yeah, I'm sure it does change how we work, yeah. I'm sure it changes the sort of films we make. In my mind, for the better, actually. I think the best work I've done with Mischa. I mean, you know, I don't know if... Yeah. So... and I can't quite explain why. Like I said before, there's a sort of... And I'm happy with that. I'm prepared to just show up. And with Mischa, I feel like I can just show up and stuff happens. And I don't think it's just because Mischa's there. I think it's something about the combination that's really, it's really fruitful for us.
What about you, Mischa?
I think...
Don't contradict me, Mischa.
No, I was just going to go more into the kind of miniature of it, which is like... I like when we're on set and we've got it, like one of us has an idea and then we kind of have to pitch it to the other person. And sometimes we'll be like, gosh, Siobhan, I got this great idea, how about this, you know, we do this? And Siobhan will be like, oh, that doesn't make any sense, or what are you talking about? But just the act of having to kind of explain it and describe how it could work kind of is the filmmaking process. And to have someone you're working with who you can kind of like go through that process comfortably, rather than kind of sometimes when you're making a film you can have it more, you know, it's more of a meltdown. It's like, how's this going to work? Oh my gosh. Whereas if you can find someone who you can say, how is this going to work, and actually work through it, it's a real blessing. Yeah.
Okay, any more questions?
What's with the gas mask?
I was going to ask that.
Andrew O'Keefe, are you here? Nice to be here. And you're responsible for the gas mask. It just landed in my life, and it just kept on. It just kept on showing up. Sorry.
So Andrew is responsible for the gas mask motif that goes throughout Siobhan's body of work.
I'm done with the gas mask. If you guys are bored with it, I am too now. So I'm done with the gas mask. But yeah, it was just in my office, or in my bathroom. Somehow it sort of moved around in my life. Yes. I think it's now back in your office, Andrew. So
No, a student took it.
Oh, good.
So if you come and secretly place objects in Siobhan's house, you'll know that in a few years you'll see them as like...
Leave thing on my desk. You never know.
See them in her films.
Someone might compose to it. Could happen.
Other questions?
Did either of you learn anything about your own work by watching? Because most of you don't watch all your short films together. And
hell no, that's like the first time ever.
Yeah.
I was just wondering what the experience was like for you watching, and what that felt like.
What was it like? It was slightly. It was. I was thinking it was some weird combination of a violent fairy tale and a kind of really strange dream. I just realised how illogical my head is, and I was slightly kind of... I did kind of go, oh my God, really? So there was that. It wasn't an unpleasant experience, but it was a kind of... in some ways I don't quite recognise them, to be honest. You know, when you do a thing and then you put it out into the world and you come back to it later and you're not absolutely sure how your head got there and got in and out of it. So, and I'm a slightly chaotic thinker, I think, and the making is how I make sense of it, and not always that much sense. So it was interesting watching my brain talk back to me, and it was, so I recognised my inner chaos, so that was how it was sort of like weird, crunchy poetry. Ooh, what is this?
What about for you, Mischa?
Well, was really nice. It was like seeing all my old friends back, you know, because I really love working with actors and artists, and I probably, you know, when you're making a film, you fall in love with all your actors in one way or another, and so yeah, it was cool.
Okay, I think we can wrap up there. So, Mischa and Siobhan, I really appreciate you bearing the inside of your brain to both of us, to the audience, because it's quite daunting to show your body of work at a public viewing like this. And it, you know, as I often say to film students, when you show your film, however conventional it might be, it is like standing up in front of everyone with your clothes off and saying, "What do you think?" So, and you've just shown, you know, vast body of your work. So it's a great privilege. Yes.
I feel weirdly revealed.
Well, yes, and you were weirdly revealed, but it was a fabulous reveal, and it was a fantastic trip inside both of your heads, and also a great expansion of the filmmaking process, just because it's such an unusual approach both of you had. Is so refreshing to see filmmaking done in a different way. So thanks for your generosity and vulnerability in allowing us to have a look at those fantastic films that you make. So let's give Siobhan and Mischa a good big round of applause.
Thanks, Helen.
Thank you, and I was going to apologise, but I won't. Thanks very much for coming. I really appreciate it. It was really
Don't
nice.
apologise. It was absolutely wonderful, really.
Go back in 10 years and have another body of work.